Welcome to the Jonathan Van Bilsen Show, featuring lively, in-depth conversation with compelling guests from our community. And here is our host, Jonathan Van Bilsen.
Thank you. Current COVID restrictions are still forcing us to do our show remotely, which is certainly challenging, but it's a lot of fun. We've been managing. Today, we've got a very special guest. She spends her life empowering women, writing books, and mentoring people of all ages. Please welcome Crystal Andrus Morissette. Crystal, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure.
So Crystal, let's talk a little bit about yourself. You've appeared on Oprah. You've been interviewed by the best magazines and newspapers out there. You've done shows on all the major networks, and now you're on my show. So your media career is totally rounded out. I'm curious. Why don't you give us a little bit of overview of what you do?
Wow. I do a lot, but to put it in a nutshell, I'm an author. So I have a bunch of books here that I just happened to grab. I actually have six international books now, and I'm the founder of the SWAT Institute. It stands for Simply Woman Accredited Trainer. I say we're the new Special Weapons and Tactical, and we're going to help heal the world one woman at a time. So it's an empowerment coach certification, and we're in 45 countries. As well. So, and I do talks and still coach. I'm still working with some clients. So it's a lot of just empowerment, writing, creating, and helping women. And it's certainly not anti-man. It's just helping women step into a better place in their own lives.
Excellent. Where are you originally from? Are you from this area?
I am. I was actually born in Toronto, and my parents moved out to Oshawa when I was young, and then I ended up moving back into the city as a teenager. I've lived out in Vancouver, and now I've made my home in the little hamlet of Greenbank.
Lovely. It's a beautiful part of the world. So you talk about the emotional age throughout your presentations and your books, and I guess, is that different from normal age?
Well, it sure is. We have chronological age. So I just turned 50. I feel like I'm still biologically, I'm going to be 30 forever. But emotional age is something different than both biological. Biological is how well you take care of your body. Whereas emotional age is a concept that I actually created. And I was really shocked by that about 10 years ago when I launched the school. And I was talking actually with my team, and I was saying, you really want to show up in a really empowered emotional age. No one understood what I was talking about. And so at that time, I started to dive in, and I did a ton of research. Have I learned this somewhere before? How do I know this? And at that time, there was emotional intelligence, which is how well we can gauge how someone else is feeling so that we can sort of monitor ourselves to match them. But emotional age is the idea that it's the way that we communicate, negotiate, compromise, the way that we are showing up in our lives.
So how do people figure out what emotional age they're like? What emotional age am I? How would I figure that out?
Well, I would say I kind of put it in three simple archetypes. And what I mean by archetypes is it's a quick call to mind. So there's an adult archetype that you are probably showing up as a man, the man, and I like to show up as the woman. And within each of us, we also have these two other archetypes that are the parent and the child. So there are people that are 70, but are still showing up like a child in their relationships, confused, helpless, damsel in distress. We often will find a man, a father type to be with, whereas with men, if they're in son energy or in that child archetype, they often feel like a bad boy or the kid in the relationship. So it's the easiest way is to kind of nail it down with these three archetypes. Mother energy, I call it for women. Daughter energy, I call it for women, or woman energy. And the great news is you can actually head over to Oprah.com and take my quiz. If you put in emotional age quiz, you can take the quiz on Oprah, and it will give you your answer. Now, here's the secret. Most of us know the right answers. We know what it means to show up like a woman or like a man in our lives. But what you have to do is actually look at your life and see if it's reflecting back to you a really empowered, happy, joyous life. And if it's not, then you have to do the quiz again and tell yourself the truth about how you really do things and not how you know to do things. And that's a good place to start.
So you talk about energy. Do you believe you can change your energy?
Yes, absolutely. Well, what did Albert Einstein say? Energy is never lost. It's only transferred. And we are energy beings. Without sounding woo-woo, that is actually science. If you were to take your hand and put it under a microscope, any one of us, we would zoom down, and the top layer is, yes, cellular. But if we zoom deeper, we are all created of billions of little atoms that are essentially little bundles of energy. So to our energy processing eyes, I see you as Jonathan, but you're actually a blob of energy that's vibrating at a certain frequency. And when you're really empowered, that energy is very powerful. It's almost like, imagine a dimmer switch on a dining room wall. When you can turn up your energy, you are happier, you're more joyful, things click easier. When your energy is low, and it doesn't mean negative or bad, but when your energy is low, we all know sometimes we feel like we're carrying the weight of the world on our shoulders. We feel heavy. It's hard to lose weight. It's hard to feel great. So this work is essentially about turning up your energy, which is, you could use the same word as, is becoming more empowered.
So I'm curious, how did you get into this business?
Yeah, interestingly, I started off in my late teens, and crazy now that I think about it, but I competed in my first fitness show back then. And I was working out with weights, and I felt strong. I'd had a really turbulent life growing up, and this started to give me this sense of power. I opened my first health club at 21 and went on to work with a chain of clubs. And by the time I was 25, that's when I had my first daughter. I was married, had my first daughter, gained a lot of weight. It changed my perspective on living life as a heavier woman, the way the world treated me, the way I felt. And after losing that weight, I decided I didn't want to run health clubs anymore. I really wanted to talk to women, speak with women, help them feel better about themselves from the inside out. And I actually, my first book came from my own journal. I documented every single day what I was doing, how I was feeling, and I started to recognize patterns. And those patterns helped me see that I'm a big creator of my experience and the way that I'm showing up. So I self-published my first book. I have a copy. I grabbed it here.
We'll probably put it on the screen as well.
Okay, this was my first, and full color. What was I thinking? I didn't know what I was thinking. I published my first book. I got a phone call, and I was on the shopping channel with it. And I got a phone call from Hay House Publishing down in California.
Okay.
And flew me down, and I did my first book deal. Ended up doing 3 book deals with them. They gave me a radio show on Sirius Satellite. They put me out on the stage, and I felt I had the imposter syndrome. There I was with Louise Hay and Wayne Dyer and Deepak Chopra, and I was like, I'm 30. Wow. I have no wisdom, but it just grew. And by the time I was 40, then I launched my school, and it's really been an organic process of just the next thing and stepping into it. And believe me, when I first had my radio show or did TV interviews, I was terrified. I would take my headphones off and think my head's going to explode because there was so much energy. I didn't know how to balance that energy. And so here I am now, feeling pretty grounded in what I do. And so I am proof that you can learn how to step into your power.
Well, you certainly come across very professional. I know what it's like doing live shows, and it doesn't matter how many you do. My head still thumps when I take the headsets off.
Yeah.
You touched on the weight issue, and I just wanted to go there for a minute.
Sure.
People always talk about a battle that they feel between wanting to lose weight but feeling much safer in a bigger body. So you have a brilliant way of helping women dialogue between their chubby bubby, if I might, and their charmer self. Can you elaborate a little bit on it? Take us through that process.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up because The truth is, a lot of women have been abused in different ways. And we think that our weight is just about eating chocolate. But for a lot of us, myself included, I realized that my weight served as protection. I felt like I would be a better mother. Women wouldn't be jealous of me. I wouldn't get male attention. So trying to lose weight was uh, self-defeating because my core beliefs didn't believe that being thin and beautiful was safe. So I do a lot of archetype work. In my school, we call it working with parts. And just like me saying we all have a mother within us, we all have a daughter within us. Well, your mother energy often shows up, and I call her my chubby bubby. She's my mother energy, and it's okay for other women to be sexy. It's okay for but my chubby bubby feels safer if she can just, make other women feel good. Don't need to be intimidating. So once I started, first, I had to recognize who I really am. And then I got to know this part of me, and I would literally journal, and I would let her talk to me. And she would write. I know it sounds crazy, like multiple personalities, but I would let her talk to the real me and say, like, where have you been? If we're so safe, why haven't you been running the show? And then when I started realizing my daughter energy is very charming, she's sexy, she's charming. Well, there was a battle going on. And really, in truth, in all of us, we have these battles going on in our head about how to be our best self, but we're scared. And then this other parts of us come up. So I've taught my clients, I teach my students that we have these different aspects of us. And when we can begin to dialogue with these different parts of ourselves, we can make peace with ourselves. So it's like I invite Chubby Bubby and Charmer to dinner, and I'm the woman, and I ask Chubby Bubby, and she wants to eat a lot of food at dinner, and the Charmer's like, yeah, she's not interested. And I let them get to know each other, and I thank them. Thank you, Charmer, for doing the best job you can. I'm in charge now. Thank you, Chubby Bubby, for protecting me when I didn't know how. I'm in charge now. And this is what we call healing the split. In psychology, we call it healing the split, so that you don't have this battle in your voice, in your head rather, anymore. You can kind of let these parts of you settle down, calm down, and let the real you run the show.
And is it effective? I mean, it sounds great. It sounds
highly effective. In my book, The Emotional Edge, that's been featured on Oprah.com 3 times now, and the quiz there as well, I actually use a lot of archetypes. So when I say archetypes, you might think the wallflower is a mother energy, the busy bee, the perfectionist, the Puritan, the chubby bubby. Whereas in our daughter energy, or if it's even with a man, there's the warrior. There's a sense of, instead of having to disown these parts of ourselves because we're horrified of them, we kind of bring them back into the wholeness of who we are. And it reminds me of Jane Fonda. She was on Oprah's Masterclass, and she said, we're not meant to be perfect. We're meant to be whole.
It sounds like an amazing journey. I'm really looking forward to hearing more about it. We'll be back right after these messages.
Hello, I'm Jonathan Van Bilsen for Photos and Travel, where we bring the world to your doorstep. Traveling during this pandemic is virtually at a standstill. However, thanks to Rogers and YouTube, my new show, Photos and Travel, is heading into its 2nd season. Join me for a new episode every month when we get together and explore exotic locales around the world. Check local listings for dates and times, or search Jonathan Van Bilsen's Photos and Travel on YouTube.
Welcome back. Our guest today is Crystal Andrus Morissette. She's an international best-selling author, emotional age and communications expert, and women's advocate who is teaching women all over the globe to take charge of their stories. Crystal, welcome back.
Thank you.
So you talked a little bit about mother-daughter energy and so forth. What sort of characteristics would each person display?
Great. Okay. So, and again, it's non-gender. So because I work with women, I always just say that's your mother energy. So mother energy is the most selfless part of you. I almost think, when I first did this work, I did look at some of the other great psychologists. So Freud would have said we have an id, an ego, and a superego. Think of your mother energy like your superego. She is the most moralizing part of you. So She will give up her bed if you need to have it. She'll give you her last bite of food. She's so selfless, but she's often overworked, exhausted, tired, not taking care of herself. Even if she's a perfectionist and it looks perfect on the outside, underneath, she's exhausted and tired and is wondering when someone is going to notice all the wonderful things that she does for everyone, and they never do. And your daughter energy or your child archetype is the more selfish part of you. It's the part of you that wants, needs, takes. They know there's a good life out there. They don't know how to get it. They demand, they grip their, and I think of your woman energy or your man energy as being sort of this balance between the most selfless part of you, the most selfish part of you, and I call that your real self. So when you can balance it, and it is a bit of a tightrope at first, but when you can start asking yourself simple questions like, well, what would my mother energy do? Oh, she would definitely babysit the kids all week. What would my daughter energy do? She would say, are you crazy? And woman energy is the sort of healthy balance or the middle way in between.
Okay. So you've mentioned a couple of times your school. What exactly is that?
It is an online school. We have amazing professors. I actually launched it about 10 years ago before the world of online. I somehow knew this was coming. I really did. And I wanted to be able to reach women who maybe couldn't get to Canada or the United States. It blows me away. I get giddy and excited when women from countries that I think, how did they learn about us? We have, for example, Hamda from Palestine, who's taken our program and is now an empowerment coach certified through us. We have women from Ireland and, India and Hong Kong. And so they log into our platform and we have live calls just like this at different times. We have different professors that teach different aspects of the curriculum. And we just take them through the program. It's based on a concept that I created called the empowerment spectrum. So it's both a communication scale and a way of recognizing what part of you is showing up. So they go through the first program. There's testing. Then before they can graduate, we set them up with 10 different women from around the world for mentorship coaching. So they do 3 calls with each woman. So by the time they've graduated, they have 30 real coaching calls, not with your family. Never coach your family, never coach your friends, but real women that really gives them some confidence that and then we listen to those calls, we critique those calls, we show them where they could make improvements, and then they graduate. So it is a strict sort of process. Right. Any woman can enroll. It doesn't mean that every woman graduates, not that we would fail her, but she would need to go through all the processes, learn all the interventions, do the practice coaching. And from there, she would graduate as a certified empowerment coach. And then she could take the next step, which is enrolling to become a master empowerment coach. So it's pretty comprehensive and really exciting, really empowering work for these women. And it's a sisterhood of like-minded women from around the world. This last year with COVID, I think our sisterhood, we call it, saved many of us because we still had connection.
How many people are involved in your sisterhood?
We have thousands really? Of women. Yeah, thousands of women who have gone through the program. And yeah, it's very exciting. And some of them now are making 6 and 7 figures. Many of them have, their own. Some of them have written books. Right. Some of them have their own courses, certification. It's just really exciting for them. And for me.
Once they graduate and they're sort of certified to do this, do they go out and find people to mentor, for lack of a better word?
Yeah, they would launch their own website. So in our master program, we would actually teach them then the business behind the business. Now you're a coach. Now you need to learn how to run your business. How do you build the website? How do you do a sales funnel? How do you offer, content that's going to draw people in? So yeah, then they go off, and whether they work in an office, whether they're working in a doctor's office, whether they're working in a wellness center, or whether they're just doing it over the telephone and coaching women from their bedroom, it's what they want to do with it once they are finished.
You provide everything. You provide the business side as well.
We sure do. Because there are too many extremely talented, gifted healers, let's just call them, whether it's a massage therapist, whether it's, there's so many gifted women that don't understand business,
Right.
weren't taught business. So we want to empower them when it comes to their finances as well, because you can't be in woman energy if you can't take care of yourself.
Yeah, that holds true with men as well. I believe everybody or a lot of people have tons of special traits, but the business side is quite often forgotten. And
Yeah.
no matter how good a mousetrap you build, if you don't know how to market it, nobody's going to beat a path to your door. So
Yeah, that's what I would say. I say, you don't want to be a 6-star hotel in the middle of the desert. You don't need to get more fluffy towels. You now need to learn how to drive people so that you can serve them. And I think that's an important thing for women. I'm going to say, I think men as well, but for me with women, is teaching them that you're allowed to make money doing what you love, and you're allowed to make money helping people. We have so many amazing give backs and so many things, but if you can't take care of yourself, then you really can't take care of anyone. And for me, being a single mother for many, many, many years, my daughters are now grown and on their own and doing extremely well in their life. But that became a really important thing for me. How can I, in a sense, stay home with my daughters and still make enough money to take care of all of us? And I've done it through books, which not a lot of authors make a living off of books. I'm one of the few, I think, I know in my area. And being able to now run an online business from home, it's wonderful. It's the way of the future.
And that's very, very true. Your point is very, very valid. I know a lot of authors who they write a book and then they think that they're just going to become the John Grishams of the world, and it just doesn't happen.
But you do have to know how to share that now with the world. You have to have the confidence to do interviews. You have to be able to sell your book. And so that's part of what we do, is we really help show women that, it's not spammy to share your goods.
I know. I know the average author in Canada is making about less than $2 a book. And whether they're sold on Amazon or whether they're in Chapters or Indigo, it doesn't seem to matter, because there's so much cost involved in producing and putting a book out there.
For most authors, they pay to be an author. They're not being paid to be an author, but it's also a brilliant business card in a sense. It sets you as an expert, especially if the book is excellent and you get great reviews. So, sometimes it's the lost leader, I call it, that brings people into your world so that you can then sell them your services, your products, more than the book. And that's what I did with the school. My books were this great way of bringing people to me, but now I need to sell them something bigger than a $20 book that I make $2 on.
And it's an emotional drain. I remember putting out my first book. It's all me in there. The whole thing is me. And if you put it out there and people don't like it, that's a very personal thing. And that's very hard to deal with.
Well, this whole world, this whole online world, whether it's books or it's social media now, it can be really, really hard on your self-esteem. You have keyboard warriors that sit in their dark basement and tell you you're a loser and write horrible things about you online. So you do have to get a thick skin. You do. And you have to learn, and that's about part of being empowered. Right. You have to learn how to lift yourself above that, to stay in your truth, and to keep believing in yourself. Because if you don't believe in yourself, nobody is going to believe in you. And that's just a matter of fact.
Our guest today is Crystal Andrus Morissette. She's an international best-selling author and women's advocate. I wanted to touch on part of your work is helping people integrate and heal their wounded archetypes, as you put it, back into the wholeness of who they are. So how do you help people understand the difference between their wounded self and their real self?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I think that's the simplest way. If you feel confused with 3 archetypes and mother energy and daughter energy, just think to yourself, there was a you. I want to tell this story really quickly. This is a true story. In 1957, a group of Buddhist monks were moving this huge statue, 5-ton statue of a clay Buddha. And in the midst of moving it, one of the straps broke And the statue hit the ground, fell, and cracked, and everyone was horrified. This is a true story. And underneath the clay, they saw something glistening, and they did something that would take a lot of courage. They ran and got chisels and began to chip away the clay. And they discovered that it was a solid golden Buddha. And the story goes that hundreds of years earlier, the Burmese army was coming into Thailand at the time, and the monks devised this genius plan: cover the gold with clay and it won't be stolen. And it worked. The trouble is, the Burmese army slaughtered every single monk, and the story could never be passed on. So the wounded part of us is, to me, it's sort of the exterior, it's the clay, it's the persona that we put on, whether it's the addict, whether it's the chubby bubby. And don't worry about what it is. Just know that underneath the protection that we all choose is your real self. Who would you be if you'd never been abused? Who would you be if you'd never been discarded, let down, neglected, abandoned? Who would you be if you just were raised in an environment that nurtured you? That's who you really are. So the wounded self is we've all been wounded. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what country you live in, what religion you practice or don't practice. We all have been wounded. And so it gives people tremendous relief to realize there's a part of you that is still whole and amazing, and there's a part of you that's not so amazing. And I was
going to say, it's the old adage of if it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger, right?
Yeah. And so what we try to do is it gives you tremendous relief to say, you're not broken, but there's this part of you that's showing up, and she's breaking a lot of relationships in your life. Let's get to know her. Let's get to know your real self. And then let's try to heal this wounded part of you so that the real you can be in charge again and run the show.
And I take it we've only got a few seconds left, but it also works in marriage as well, right? As far as and anything else that you do.
Everything you do. It works with relationships. It works with parenting. It works with your finances. It works with your love life. It works with your sex life. It works with everything. And it's profound work and profound healing.
I must tell you, Crystal, that was a really, really fast half hour. I can't believe that we're finished. We're at the end. And I wish you every success in the future. Join us next month when our guest will be Stephen Gray, CEO of Medical Associates of Port Perry and chair of the new Oak Ridge Hospice. I'm Jonathan Van Bilsen. Thanks for watching, and stay safe.